Whether it be a birthday, a special holiday, or just because you're plain in the mood for cake, we're always looking for a good, solid cake recipe. And today's recipe is for low-carb, sugar-free vanilla layer cake. So easy, so good. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I'm also going to teach you how to make a quick 3-ingredient frosting that takes less than 5 minutes to just whip up, and you can use it on anything. So good, so quick, just like we like it. And if you want a printable version of these recipes, then make sure you check out my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You'll find printable versions of these recipes and many others there for you. Also, if you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, hit the little notification bell. That way you can be notified every time I put out a new video. And while you do that, let's get cooking. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Spray 2 8-inch round cake pans with cooking spray. In a microwave-safe bowl, melt butter for about 10 to 15 seconds or until mostly melted. Then stir with a fork or a spoon until it is melted completely. Set the bowl aside for the butter to cool completely. In a medium mixing bowl, whisk together 1 cup of almond flour, 3/4 cups of vital wheat gluten, 3/4 cup oat flour, 1/4 cup coconut flour, 1 1/4 teaspoon baking powder, and 1 teaspoon salt. Whisk these together until they're fully combined and no lumps remain in the flour. If you're wanting this to be gluten-free, then substitute the vital wheat gluten for more almond flour and add 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum to it. And don't forget the xanthan gum, as I always tell you guys, that is your binding agent if you are going for gluten-free. But also, as I always tell you guys, remember when you change a gluten recipe to a gluten-free recipe, it will affect the lift and the texture of your cake. It will not be as fluffy and it will not rise very much. So you'll have more of a flat layer cake. It'll still taste good, but it won't be as fluffy. So keep that in mind if you go to gluten-free. Fit your standing mixer with the whisk attachment if you have one. If you don't have one, you can use the paddle attachment or use a hand mixer. Works just fine both ways. A little bit more work with the hand mixer, but it still works. In a large mixer bowl, combine the melted cooled butter. Make sure it is completely cool. And 2 cups of granulated stevia or sweetener of your choice. Whisk on medium for about 3 minutes or until fully combined. Switch the whisk attachment to your paddle attachment. Add 5 eggs, 1 at a time. Each time you add 1 egg, beat on low after each addition until it's fully combined. Add a 1/2 cup of oil of your choice. I'm using canola oil. You can use any oil you want. 1 cup of room temperature milk. And 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. Beat on low for 20 seconds or until fully combined. Again, as I always emphasize, make sure all of your ingredients are room temperature. Make sure the milk is room temperature, make sure the eggs are room temperature, and anything else that you might store in the refrigerator, make sure it is all room temperature. When you put cold stuff in with your batter, it makes for a tough batter, which makes for a tough cake. So make sure it is all room temperature so it blends together nice and smoothly. Add 1 cup of your dry ingredients to the wet ingredients and beat on low for about 3 seconds, then on medium for 20 seconds. You don't want to start on medium speed because your dry ingredients will fly all over the place. So make sure you put it on low for a few seconds and then turn it up to medium for about 20 seconds. Continue adding your dry ingredients to your wet ingredients 1 cup at a time, beating on low, then on medium for 20 seconds after each addition, until all the ingredients are fully combined and there is no dry ingredients left. The reason why we add the dry mixture in portions is simply because it makes it easier to mix. It makes the mixing process a whole lot smoother when you add it in portions. After you've mixed the dry and wet ingredients together, then let the batter sit for about 3 minutes. Low-carb flours absorb moisture, so by letting it sit for a few minutes helps the batter to thicken up a little bit more, and that makes for a more sturdy cake. So if you don't let it sit, you have a tendency of not having such a sturdy cake, which can fall apart. So letting it sit for just a few minutes, just for about 3 minutes, helps the batter to get a little bit more thick, which results in a firmer cake. Divide the batter evenly between the 2 prepared cake pans. If you need to, tilt the pan slightly to make sure the batter evenly covers the pan. Bake 30 to 35 minutes or until a tester comes out clean. Let cool in the pan for 10 minutes. Then use a butter knife and carefully loosen the edges of the cake to ventilate the cake. Let cool for 10 more minutes. Low-carb flours are different than regular white or wheat flour. You have to let them set a little bit more. That way they don't fall apart on you. You want to make sure all the moisture sets in. You want to make sure all the ingredients set nicely together. So you need to let it cool a little bit longer in the pan before you put it on a wire rack to cool. Once it's cooled for those extra 10 minutes, turn it gently onto a wire rack and let it cool completely before frosting it. This can take a couple hours for it to cool completely. You don't want any warmth when you're frosting it because your cake will tear and the frosting will melt on your cake. You don't want that. So let it cool completely before you frost it. To assemble the layers, take 1 cake and place it on a cake plate or serving platter. You have to make sure whatever plate you're setting it on is going to be the plate that you are going to be serving the cake on, because once you get the layers on and frosted, you cannot move it. If the top of the cake is a little bubbly, take a sharp knife and thinly slice the top to where it's nice and flat, because if you have a bubble on it and you try to set the other cake on top, it'll topple over on you. So you want to make sure that the top of that first cake that you sat down is nice and flat. Take 1 cup of frosting or filling of your choice and spread it on top of the first cake. Then carefully stack the other cake on top of the filling. If you need to, you can slightly press down to make sure they're all the way together. Do not push all the way down, otherwise your filling will seep out the sides and you don't want that. Frost the tops and the sides of the cake completely until it's fully covered and you cannot see the layers at all. So it's going to look like one big cake. And there you go. Low carb, sugar-free vanilla layer cake. For the 3-ingredient frosting, in a large mixer bowl, place 1 cup of room temperature butter. Make sure it is softened a little bit, not melted, but you want it soft enough to where it will mix smoothly. If you put it in there ice cold, it will not mix properly and you'll have chunky frosting. And you don't want that, so make sure it's softened just a bit. So room temperature is great. Beat the butter on medium for about 2 minutes or until it's light and fluffy. Add 1 3/4 cup of sugar-free sweetened condensed milk. Make sure it's chilled a bit. Put it in the refrigerator for about 2 hours, or better yet, overnight is really the best way. But if you're in a hurry, you can just chill it for about 2 hours. As long as it's cold, it whips up better if it's cold. And add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Mix these on medium until they're thoroughly combined, which takes about 1 minute to get it all beat up until it's nice and fluffy. If you can't find sugar-free sweetened condensed milk in the store, then check out my video on sugar-free condensed milk. It gives a nice, easy recipe there for you. Or you can go to my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com and search in the search bar for sugar-free sweetened condensed milk, and there's a printable version of the recipe there for you. It's very quick, very easy, very yummy. If you're wanting to pipe this frosting and you need it to be a little bit more stiff, you can always add about a half teaspoon of cornstarch to it and just whisk it in after the frosting is all made. It's pretty durable as it is, but if you feel like you need a little bit more stiff, just add a little bit of cornstarch and it'll be good to go. And there you have it. 3-ingredient, sugar-free vanilla frosting. And if you want a chocolate version of this, all you need to do is melt 2 ounces of unsweetened chocolate, then let it cool, then add it to the vanilla frosting after the vanilla frosting's all thoroughly mixed. Add the chocolate and beat it for about 30 seconds more on medium, and you will have chocolate. Also, if you're going to do the chocolate, make sure you reduce the vanilla extract to just a half teaspoon instead of 1 teaspoon. And make sure that the chocolate is fully cooled off before you add it to your frosting, otherwise you'll melt your frosting. So make sure it's completely cooled before you blend it in. And there you are, low-carb, sugar-free vanilla layer cake with sugar-free vanilla frosting. Make sure you store any leftovers in the fridge. Eat and enjoy. And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit the little notification bell. That way you could be notified every time I put out a new video. And if you want, leave me a comment. Let me know if there's any other recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do my best to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.